Liam Carter loved the quiet hum of his bike's tires against the asphalt, the gentle rustle of leaves in the late afternoon breeze, and the warmth of the sun on his face. This was his time to think, to feel free, as he explored the winding streets of his neighborhood. But today, his ride brought him to an unexpected stop. As he rounded the corner onto Willow Lane, he spotted Mrs. Evelyn Bennett hunched over a small wooden table on her front porch. Her silver hair gleamed in the sunlight, but her face was furrowed in frustration as she tinkered with an old radio. Her hands trembled slightly as she fiddled with the knobs, muttering softly to herself. Liam slowed his bike and steered toward her driveway. Mrs. Bennett had always been a kind neighbor, the type to wave hello and share a smile. He had even shoveled her walkway once last winter when the snow piled up high. But today, she seemed different, smaller somehow, weighed down by something unseen. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Bennett," Liam called out, hopping off his bike. Startled, Evelyn looked up, her expression softening when she recognized him. "Oh, Liam," she said with a weak smile. "I didn't hear you coming. I'm just trying to get this old thing working again." She gestured toward the radio with a sigh. "It belonged to Robert, my late husband. It hasn't worked in years, but I can't bear to part with it." Liam's chest tightened at the sadness in her voice. He approached the porch, glancing at the dusty, outdated radio. "Maybe I can help," he offered. "I like working on electronics. My dad says I've got a knack for fixing things." Evelyn hesitated, her eyes darting between Liam and the radio. Then, with a small shrug, she stepped aside. "If you think you can figure it out, be my guest. It would mean the world to me." Liam smiled, setting his bike against the railing and kneeling beside the table. He examined the device carefully, his fingers brushing over its worn edges. A few moments later, he spotted the issue, a frayed wire that had come loose from its connection. "It's a simple fix," he said confidently, reaching into his backpack for the small toolkit he always carried. As he worked, Evelyn watched him, her eyes wide with curiosity. She was struck by his focus, the way his brow furrowed in concentration as he carefully reconnected the wire. "There we go," Liam said, straightening up and flipping the switch. The radio crackled to life, a soft melody spilling from the speakers. Evelyn gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Oh my goodness, you did it!" Tears glistened in her eyes as she reached for the radio. "I can't believe it's working again." Liam grinned, his chest swelling with pride. "It wasn't too hard. I'm glad I could help." Evelyn placed a hand on his shoulder, her grip firm but gentle. "You've done more than fix this radio, Liam. This was Robert's favorite. Hearing it play again brings back so many memories." "Thank you." Liam felt a lump form in his throat at her words. He hadn't realized how much the radio meant to her. "You're welcome, Mrs. Bennett. I'm just happy I could help." Evelyn smiled, wiping at her eyes. "Why don't you come inside for some cookies? I just baked a fresh batch this morning. It's the least I can do to thank you." The promise of cookies made Liam's face light up. "That sounds great. Thanks." Inside, the house was warm and cozy, filled with the scent of vanilla and something faintly floral. Photos lined the walls, pictures of a younger Evelyn and a tall, kind-looking man Liam assumed was Robert. There were shelves filled with books, trinkets, and keepsakes that spoke of a life well lived. As Liam sat at the kitchen table, Evelyn placed a plate of chocolate chip cookies and a glass of milk in front of him. "Here you go, dear." These were Robert's favorite. Liam took a bite, the gooey chocolate melting on his tongue. "These are amazing," he said, his voice muffled. "You're a great baker, Mrs. Bennett." Evelyn chuckled, her laughter light and warm. "I've had plenty of practice, I suppose." Baking was always something Robert and I enjoyed together. We used to bake cookies for his students every holiday season. "Students?" Liam asked, curious. "Oh yes," Evelyn said, her eyes softening with nostalgia. Robert was a teacher, math and science. He had a knack for inspiring kids to dream big. He always said the most important thing a teacher could do was believe in their students. Liam listened intently, captivated by her stories. He found himself imagining Robert a patient, kind man with a passion for helping others. It reminded Liam of his own dream of becoming an engineer, of building things that could make people's lives better. You know, Evelyn said, breaking into his thoughts, you remind me of him, Liam, always so kind and thoughtful, willing to lend a hand. Liam blushed, ducking his head. I'm just happy to help. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, Liam realized it was time to head home. He thanked Evelyn for the cookies and promised to visit again soon. As he pedaled away, a sense of warmth filled him. Today had been more than just a good deed. It felt like the start of something special. The next afternoon, Liam found himself turning onto Willow Lane again. He hadn't planned to visit Mrs. Bennet so soon, but something about their conversation the day before had stuck with him. He couldn't shake the image of her warm smile, the way her face had lit up when the radio crackled to life. She seemed lonely, and the thought tugged at his heart. As he neared her house, he noticed Evelyn sitting on the porch, a book in her lap. She looked up as Liam rolled to a stop at the end of her driveway, her expression shifting from surprise to delight. Liam, she called, setting her book aside. What a lovely surprise. Hi, Mrs. Bennet, Liam said, propping his bike against the railing. I just wanted to check if the radio's still working. It's working perfectly, Evelyn said with a smile. I've been listening to it all morning. Thank you again, dear. Liam shrugged, his cheeks flushing slightly. I'm glad it's still working. Do you need help with anything else? Evelyn hesitated, then chuckled softly. You know, there is one thing. My garden's been getting a bit unruly. Robert always took care of it, but my knees aren't what they used to be. Liam grinned. I can help with that. Just show me what to do. For the next hour, Liam worked in the garden, pulling weeds and trimming overgrown bushes while Evelyn sat nearby, offering advice and encouragement. As they worked, she told him more stories about her late husband, how they'd met at a college dance, how he proposed to her during a picnic in the park, and how they'd spent their weekends volunteering at the local community center. Robert believed in giving back, Evelyn said, her voice tinged with pride. He always said the best way to honor your blessings is to share them with others. Liam paused, wiping the sweat from his brow. He sounds like an amazing person. He was, Evelyn said softly, but you remind me of him in so many ways. That same kindness, that same drive to help others. Liam felt a swell of pride at her words, but he also felt a responsibility, like he needed to live up to the image she had of him. I just do what I can, he said modestly. By the time he finished the garden, the sun was beginning to set. Evelyn looked around, her eyes shining with gratitude. It looks beautiful. Liam, thank you so much. Anytime, Liam said, dusting off his hands. I'm happy to help. Over the next few weeks, Liam began visiting Evelyn regularly. Sometimes he helped with small tasks around the house, like fixing a squeaky door hinge or replacing a light bulb. Other times, they simply sat on the porch, sharing stories and watching the world go by. One afternoon, as they sat sipping lemonade, Evelyn turned to Liam with a curious expression. What about you, Liam? What are your dreams? Liam hesitated, caught off guard by the question. I guess I've always wanted to be an engineer. I like figuring out how things work, fixing things. My dad says I'm good at it. Evelyn smiled, her eyes lighting up. An engineer? That's a wonderful dream. Robert would have loved that. He always encouraged his students to pursue careers in science and technology. Liam shifted in his seat, suddenly feeling self-conscious. I don't know if I'll ever get there. College is expensive, and my grades aren't always the best, but it's what I want to do. Evelyn reached out and placed a hand on his arm, her touch gentle but firm. Don't doubt yourself. Liam, you have the talent and the heart, and with hard work, I know you can achieve anything. Her words stayed with Liam long after he left her house that day. They filled him with a sense of determination he hadn't felt before, a belief that maybe, just maybe, his dreams weren't as far out of reach as he thought. One sunny morning, Liam arrived at Evelyn's house to find her sitting at the kitchen table, a thoughtful expression on her face. A small velvet box rested on the table in front of her. Good morning, Mrs. Bennet, Liam said as he stepped inside. Is everything okay? Evelyn looked up, her smile warm but tinged with something deeper, something emotional. Liam, there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about. Liam frowned, suddenly nervous. What is it? Evelyn gestured for him to sit down, and he did, watching as she picked up the velvet box and turned it over in her hands. Robert and I never had children, she began softly. It's something we always wanted, but it just wasn't in the cards for us. After he passed, I felt so alone, but then you came along. Liam's heart ached at the sadness in her voice. Mrs. Bennet, no, let me finish. Evelyn said gently, you've brought so much joy into my life. Liam, your kindness, your visits, they made me feel like I have a family again, and I want to do something for you in return. She opened the velvet box, revealing a beautiful gold wristwatch. Its face was simple but elegant, and its hands ticked steadily. Liam recognized it from the photos on Evelyn's wall. It had belonged to Robert. This was Robert's watch, Evelyn said, her voice trembling slightly. He wore it every day, and it became a symbol of his commitment to helping others. I want you to have it. Liam stared at the watch, his throat tight with emotion. I can't take this. Mrs. Bennet. It's too important. It is important. Evelyn agreed, reaching out to place the watch in his hands. And that's why I want you to have it. You remind me so much of Robert. Liam, I see the same kindness, the same potential to change the world. This watch is a reminder of that. Liam swallowed hard, tears prickling at the corners of his eyes. Thank you, Mrs. Bennet. I'll take good care of it. I promise. Evelyn smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. I know you will, dear. And there's one more thing. She reached into a drawer and pulled out an envelope, handing it to Liam. Inside this envelope is something Robert and I always wanted to do: start a scholarship fund for a deserving student. I've set up that fund in your name. Liam, it's enough to help you get started on your path to becoming an engineer. Liam's hands trembled as he opened the envelope and saw the details of the fund. His mind raced with disbelief and gratitude. Mrs. Bennet, I don't know what to say. This is incredible. Evelyn reached across the table, her hand resting over his. You've given me so much. Liam, let me give this to you. Liam pedaled home that evening, the weight of Evelyn's gifts resting heavily on his heart, but in the best way possible. The watch on his wrist ticked steadily, as if reminding him of the responsibility that now came with it. The scholarship fund felt like a lifeline, a bridge to the dreams he had always kept at arm's length. When he reached home, his parents noticed the change in his demeanor immediately. Liam, is everything okay? His mom asked, setting down the pot she was stirring. You look different. Liam hesitated for a moment before pulling the watch into view and setting the envelope on the kitchen counter. His father raised his eyebrows, clearly intrigued. Mrs. Bennet gave me these. Liam explained, his voice thick with emotion. She said it's to help me become an engineer. His parents exchanged a stunned look, and his mom's eyes filled with tears. Oh, Liam, she whispered, wrapping her arms around him. She must really see something special in you. His dad picked up the envelope, his expression serious as he read the details. This isn't just a gift, Liam. This is an investment in your future. You'll have to work hard to honor it. I know, Liam said, his voice steady. I'm going to work harder than I ever have. The next day, Liam approached his teachers about extra help. He stayed after school to ask questions about subjects he struggled with, particularly math, which he knew he needed to excel in if he wanted to study engineering, though the effort was grueling at times. He kept thinking of Evelyn's words, and the watch on his wrist seemed to whisper encouragement whenever he felt like giving up. His teachers noticed the change in him almost immediately. Liam, I'm proud of the effort you're putting in, his math teacher said one afternoon after a tutoring session. You've got potential. You just needed to believe in yourself. At home, Liam created a study schedule, dividing his time between his regular assignments and working on personal projects. One of these was a model bridge he built out of old popsicle sticks and glue. When he showed it to Evelyn, she gasped in delight. Liam, this is incredible, she said, turning the model in her hands. Robert would have been so proud of you. hearing that brought a lump to Liam's throat. And he nodded. Thank you, Mrs. Bennett. I just want to make him, and you, proud. Evelyn's stories about Robert's passion for helping others began to inspire Liam in new ways. One day, as he biked past the local community center, he noticed a group of kids sitting outside with notebooks and pencils, struggling over their homework. Liam slowed down, watching them for a moment before a thought struck him. He approached the group cautiously. Hey, do you guys need help? The kids looked up at him, their faces a mix of surprise and curiosity. One of them, a boy named Jordan, spoke up. You know math. Liam grinned. I'm getting better at it. Want me to take a look? From that day on, Liam began volunteering at the community center after school. He helped the younger kids with their homework, sharing tips and tricks he'd learned from Evelyn and his teachers. It wasn't long before he became a favorite among the children, who looked up to him not only for his knowledge but for his kindness. One afternoon, as Liam was leaving the center, the coordinator, Ms. Harper, stopped him. You're doing great work here. Liam, she said, the kids really look up to you. Thanks, Ms. Harper, Liam said, scratching the back of his head. It just feels good to help. Ms. Harper smiled. You're making a bigger difference than you realize. As Liam spent more time with Evelyn, he began inviting her to join his family for dinner. At first, Evelyn hesitated, unsure if she wanted to intrude, but Liam was persistent. You're already like family. Mrs. Bennett, he said one evening, you should be with us. Eventually, Evelyn agreed, and soon Sunday dinners became a tradition. Liam's parents adored her, and she quickly became a beloved member of their household. She shared stories of her life with Robert, offered advice to Liam's parents, and even taught Liam's mom how to bake her famous cookies. You've brought so much warmth to our home, Evelyn, Liam's mom said one evening, squeezing her hand. We're so lucky to have you. Evelyn smiled, tears brimming in her eyes. No, my dear, I'm the lucky one. One of the most defining moments for Liam came when his school announced its annual science fair. Determined to show how far he had come, Liam decided to build a model wind turbine, a project that combined his love of engineering with his desire to help the environment. For weeks, he worked tirelessly, consulting books and online tutorials, and even reaching out to his science teacher for guidance. Evelyn watched his progress with pride, occasionally offering suggestions or simply keeping him company as he worked. When the day of the fair arrived, Liam stood beside his display, his heart pounding as the judges approached. He explained the mechanics of his turbine, his voice steady despite his nerves. By the end of his presentation, the judges were nodding in approval. Later that evening, when the winners were announced, Liam's name was called for first place. He could hardly believe it as he walked up to accept his ribbon, his classmates cheering behind him. When he looked into the crowd, he saw Evelyn standing with his parents, clapping and beaming with pride. You did it, Liam, Evelyn said when he ran up to her afterward. I knew you could. Liam grinned, holding up the ribbon. This is for you, Mrs. Bennett, and for Robert. I couldn't have done it without you. As the months turned into years, Liam's bond with Evelyn only grew stronger. With her guidance and the scholarship fund she had created, he eventually enrolled in a prestigious engineering program, where he excelled both academically and personally. But he never forgot his roots or the woman who had believed in him when he doubted himself. Evelyn, now in her late 80s, watched with pride as Liam achieved his dreams. She attended his graduation, tears streaming down her face as he walked across the stage to receive his diploma. And when Liam landed his first job at an engineering firm, she was the first person he called. You've made me so proud, Liam, she said over the phone, her voice thick with emotion. Robert would have been proud too. Years later, when Evelyn passed away peacefully in her sleep, Liam was devastated, but he knew her legacy would live on through him. He continued to visit the community center, mentoring kids and sharing the lessons Evelyn and Robert had taught him. And on his wrist, he always wore Robert's watch, a constant reminder of the love, kindness, and faith that had shaped his life. Liam's life had become a testament to the values Evelyn and Robert had instilled in him: kindness, perseverance, and the belief that small acts of compassion could ripple outward in powerful ways. Though Evelyn was no longer with him, her influence remained in everything he did. Several years after graduating, Liam took on a project that had personal significance, designing a pedestrian bridge in his hometown. The bridge would connect two neighborhoods, including the one where Evelyn's house stood. He proposed naming it Bennett Crossing, in honor of Evelyn and Robert's legacy. When the project was approved, Liam poured his heart into the design. He wanted the bridge to be more than just a structure. It had to represent connection, the way Evelyn had connected him to his dreams and to a deeper sense of purpose. The day of the bridge's opening was bittersweet. Liam stood before a crowd, his heart pounding as he prepared to speak. His parents were in the front row, beaming with pride, and he spotted familiar faces from the community center among the attendees. This bridge isn't just about connecting two sides of town, Liam began, his voice steady but emotional. It's about connecting people, something Evelyn and Robert Bennett believed in deeply. Evelyn showed me that even the smallest acts of kindness can transform lives. This bridge is dedicated to her and to the values she and her husband shared. As the ribbon was cut and the crowd cheered, Liam felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had come full circle, honoring the people who had believed in him by creating something that would benefit others for generations to come. Liam continued his work at the community center, mentoring kids and helping them navigate challenges much like the ones he had faced. One day, a shy boy named Marcus approached him after a group session. "Mr. Carter," Marcus said, clutching a notebook to his chest. "Can you look at this? It's a design for a robot I want to build, but I'm not sure if it'll work." Liam smiled, recognizing the same spark of curiosity and determination he had felt as a kid. "Let's take a look," he said, pulling up a chair. As they pored over the notebook together, Liam felt a pang of nostalgia. He thought of Evelyn, of the way she had believed in him and encouraged him to dream big. Now, he was passing that encouragement forward. "Marcus," Liam said, meeting the boy's wide-eyed gaze, "this is a great idea, and I'm going to help you make it happen." On the anniversary of Evelyn's passing, Liam visited her old house, which now belonged to a young family. The garden he had once tended with Evelyn was blooming, filled with roses and lavender. He stood on the sidewalk for a moment, the memories flooding back. From his pocket, he pulled out the watch she had given him, its gold face gleaming in the sunlight. He ran his fingers over the smooth surface, feeling the weight of its history and the love it symbolized. "Thank you, Evelyn," he whispered, his voice soft but steady, "for everything." Years later, when Liam had children of his own, he told them stories about Evelyn and Robert. He taught them the values they had passed down to him: kindness, hard work, and the importance of helping others. His children grew up visiting Bennett Crossing and volunteering at the community center, carrying on the legacy that had shaped their father. In the end, Liam's life became a bridge of its own, a bridge between generations, between dreams and reality, and between the past and the future. And as he watched his children grow into compassionate, driven individuals, he knew that Evelyn and Robert's legacy would continue to flourish in ways even they could never have imagined.